Good afternoon and welcome. We are happy to welcome Jan Gottesman back to moderate Candidates Night. I want to just take a moment to explain why the Lancaster Land Trust would want to host this. It's a fair amount of work. Well, our mission is to try to protect what we think is an unusually good quality of life that we have in Lancaster. We do that in a lot of ways. One of the most important ways is to do our best to elect good officials. And in that interest, we want you to see what your choices are. We're not all going to agree on what the right thing to do is, but at least we can see who it is we're electing to speak for us. Thank you. Jan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody turning out. This is a very important time for everybody, and it is so good to see such an active election season. As you know, in the past, there's been years when nobody has run. So the fact that there's so many people willing to put themselves out to volunteer to do this, because it's a very thankless job most of the time, we all want to say thank you. I'm Jan. I'm editor of The Item, in case people don't know who I am. And we are the local newspaper. We've been covering Lancaster since the 1800s. And even though we have new owners since November, we're happy to be able to still participate in the Lancaster community. I want to thank the Land Trust for all they do to get this going every year, and SLC TV for recording this so that people can watch it from home. Plus, they're going to be able to go in and see it afterwards at their own convenience before the election. For the contested races, everybody's going to have a 2-minute opening statement. I will ask questions, rotating who answers first. Again, 2 minutes. Then candidates will be invited to make a 2-minute closing statement. To get through this, we're going to be very tight on timing. Ken Cleveland, one of the item writers, is right in the front row with signs. When he holds up the yield sign, it means you have 30 seconds left. So please think how you want to wrap up your comments. At the end of 2 minutes, he'll hold up a stop sign. We will be asking you to finish your sentence and yield the microphone. You can finish answering during your closing statement or out in the meet and greet area in the foyer. We'll make it sound nice and fancy, so if you want to go talk to people out in the meet and greet. After the contested races, we're then going to invite the candidates for uncontested races up to make a 2-minute statement so everybody knows who they are and why they're running. That way, if you see them and you have a question about the board, you can ask it to them. We do have a couple of candidates who could not make tonight, and I do have statements for 2 of them. I'll be asking if somebody is here to read the one for the other one who's not here. We'll do that during the closing statements for their races. Number 1 rule, be civil. Everybody cares about this town, or they would not be volunteering to run for what is often thankless work. And I'll be interrupting and redirecting people who stray off the issues into individual attacks. We're going to start with the select board, obviously, they're sitting in front of you. Then we're going to do Finance Committee, Board of Health, and then Planning Board. And we will be, there are 2 different seats on the Planning Board, 2 different terms. We're going to call them all up at once so they can answer the same questions. Then the last contested race is School Committee. And then we're going to start in the uncontested races. They can each make their 2-minute statement. Planning Board will be going first, then School Committee, then Library Trustees. If you want to ask a one-on-one question or talk during this, please feel free to go out into the foyer to do that so that we can continue. We do have a tight schedule. So first we're going to start with Jason Allison and Ralph Gifford for the 3-year seat on the Select Board. Using alphabetical order, we'll start opening statements with the incumbent, Jason Allison. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Jen. I am Jason Allison. I am running for re-election of the Lancaster Select Board. I love Lancaster, and there is more work to do to secure its future. We have a great team in place, but we need to continue to diversify our tax base, build strong systems in town government, and put us on a path for sustained success. Sustained success not just for my family, but for the generations of families to come. This election isn't about me, it's about Lancaster. I'm asking for your vote tonight so I can continue the great work we have started. Thank you.
And for his opening statement, we're going to ask Ralph Gifford to start.
Thank you to the Lancaster Land Trust for sponsoring this event, and to Jan for moderating, and for all of you who are attending and participating. I grew up in Lancaster. I've lived here nearly my entire life. I met my wife here, got married here at their conservatory. Our kids were the Gifford family's third generation to graduate from South Lancaster Academy. Our daughter got married in the First Church and was the third Gifford generation to actually marry in Lancaster. So our roots are not quite as long as John Schumacher's, but we're there. I've been richly blessed by growing up and living in Lancaster. I'm running for select board to pay it forward. I cannot possibly pay it back. My life experiences have been a training ground for leadership. I have experience in corporate, government, and nonprofit leadership. 21 years ago, I founded a technology company that I continue to lead as CEO. In 2002, venture capital was essentially non-existent. It was frozen. So we bootstrapped. We did it the hard way. I know how to lead in the face of financial challenges. Today, our company has employees all around the world. We have customers in at least 35 countries. And there's so many things, new car you buy anywhere in the world, if you have surgery, if you use appliances, all of these things are touched by our software. I'm most proud of the fact that my entire core team is still happily working with me after 21 years. That's extraordinary in the startup world. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to rotate now, so Ralph, you'll have the first question. What is the role of the select board in your opinion, and why are you the best person to fill that role? 2 minutes.
To provide vision and leadership. They are also specifically tasked with the financial leadership of the town. That's part of their charter. To achieve that leadership requires having a vision, so a long-term vision. When leading an organization, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get anywhere. So you have to have a multi-year plan. You have to understand where you want to get at the end, what the character of the town you want to be. That requires involving lots of people. And then with that, then you create your plan, and that is ultimately where you end up with a town everybody can be proud of.
Jason, same question.
Yeah, so the easy answer is that our policymaking board for our town in Lancaster, why I'm a good candidate to continue my role as a select board member, is leading by example. So one of the most important things to me is hire, retain, and nurture staff. I'm very grateful for the staff that we have in town, the folks that we brought on, the folks that we continue to grow in different roles, our town administrator, our building inspector, community planner, health and human services director. All of those roles have been new brought in, but we've also nurtured existing staff in police and fire and in library. So leading by example is what's really important to me, to be able to bring on the appropriate staff and put them in a position to be successful so they can be of service to the residents.
Second question. The town is facing financial issues which have been brewing for a while. Do you favor the proposed override? If yes, why? If no, what would you like to see in its place to address the fiscal problems? And we are starting with Jason on this one.
I am for the override. Nobody wants to have their taxes raised. Unfortunately, Lancaster is funded mainly by residential taxes, and we have not to date diversified our commercial tax base. We started that with the rezone that occurred over the last year, which I was for, but ultimately Lancaster's not free. We have some of the best schools in the state. We have some of the best land in the state, and we want to keep that and invest in that. So I am for the override as it's necessary to continue level set services in town. The alternative to that would be draconian cuts across all of our staff and services, and that is not the town that we want. I also believe it's critical that any select board member have a plan. I feel that it would be irresponsible to not have a plan for when you step into office for the override passing or not passing. And if it doesn't pass, it's not going to be pretty within town. I was just talking to a staff member down, and it's really important that all residents understand what happens to our town if we don't pass the override. But I'm confident that our residents understand that Lancaster is a great place to be, and we need to continue to invest in that, and that is through taxes. And unfortunately, while there may be an override this year, we're optimistic that we can have an underride in a number of years when Capital Group starts building in North Lancaster. Thank you.
Great question.
OPM. Opium stands for other people's money. And yes, it sounds like opium because it is addictive. Too much money can kill a company. This notion of OPM is a common notion in the startup world. It's a common notion because many companies are killed by too much money. When there's too much money in the system, it draws down creativity. It actually stifles innovation. It stifles out-of-the-box thinking. So often companies that are funded by OPM, venture capital is another term, end up being beaten by leaner companies with much less money. I'm an example of that. We bootstrapped. And we went up against lots of companies that were funded, and we are worldwide and going like this. Government has the luxury of relying on OPM, actually your money. I know from decades of leading business, nonprofit, and government entities that the best solutions result from creativity induced by financial constraints. Winston Churchill said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." I have repeatedly found this to be true. Organizations that embrace their crises become strong and resilient. They understand their true value, their true purpose. Don't waste our crisis. Don't waste your money. Vote for proven leadership that produces better solutions with outside-the-box thinking.
Okay, I feel like the question I wrote has already been answered, so I'm going to kind of go off the top of my head, if you guys will let me hem and haw a little bit. Many of us are on social media. We see the divisiveness that's out on social media. We know that there's been some conflict over public comments, not only in Lancaster at meetings, but all over the state. There's been a recent ruling that public comments need to be allowed, that we can't quite control them the way that we used to. So my question, I think that we need the town working together to solve some of these problems. How do we get everybody in town working together, allowing people to make their comments in a way that is constructive and productive, and that still allows us to operate the town without being hand-tied? So I know that's a long question, because I just kind of went off, but, so that is my question, and yes, Ralph, we're going to start with you with that question.
Thank you. Those of you who remember a long time ago, the 13 or so years that I served on the Board of Health, knew that I had a reputation for working with people to solve problems. I'll give you an example. We had a problem with a manure pile that the neighbors were complaining about smelled horrible. What to do about it? We called together the farmers in the community. We formed an agricultural group to help advise us on what constitutes best practice for farming. So we supported the farmers, And basically, the farmer said, this is outside of best practice, and they took care of the problem themselves. So I harnessed the power of relationships and people, outside the box thinking, to solve a problem. We didn't have to get lawyers involved. We didn't have to drive up our conflict cost, and we got the job done. That's one of just numerous examples. Also,
Jason, I don't know if I can repeat that question, but I'll try if I need to.
It is a really good question and one that I'm passionate about. I talked about leading by example. One of the most important lessons I was taught in management is you need to be able to have tough conversations. And it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to be disrespectful. And that doesn't mean you yell back at the person, but what I believe is that we own our culture, the town that we want. And if we see behavior that we think is not okay, it's important to note that. That doesn't mean you go egg their house, right? What it means is you have a conversation and you go, that's not really working for me. I'd really appreciate if we could, I think what Jan said, maybe direct the conversation. So I do think it's important that when people are mistreated, it's especially staff. Something I've learned in the last 3 years since I've been here is the municipal world is hard, right? Because you deal with us, the residents, the taxpayers. We're paying a significant portion of our incomes to this wonderful town. And they're just trying to feed their family, right? Like, that's a big deal, and I didn't expect that. So the select board is really important in that role. We are a 3-member board, and we control almost all of the positions in town, and those are people's lives. Those are the livelihoods. Some of them have been born and raised in the town, and it's the select board's job to make sure that they're in a position to be successful. I think I'll just stop there. Thank you.
So we are going to move on to closing statements, and as we've been going back and forth, Jason, you're going to start with your closing statements.
Tonight, you've had an opportunity to hear my position on various Lancaster topics and why I'm asking for your vote. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email at jason.a.allison, allison@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Ralph?
My government leadership experience was right here in Lancaster. As I just mentioned a moment ago, I served on the Board of Health for many years. I chaired it for many years. During that time, we capped the Lancaster landfill. One of the programs I'm especially proud of, Dr. Franson was trying to pilot a program to stop youth smoking. And we piloted that right here in Lancaster. We did a whole raft of things with Dr. Franson and the Board of Health. That went on to become a national program. What I did with the farmers, with that agricultural group, the State Department of Agriculture said, this is brilliant. We want to copy this statewide. And it became a model for what the state went on to do. I led a citizens group that worked for the flexible zoning law that ended up coming up with a mechanism by which we are able to acquire open space. That's why Eagle Ridge Open Space exists, because of the work that we did. I served as SLA, South Lancaster Academy, board chair for 10 years. And during that time, I took it so AUC closed during that time. Everybody expected SLA would just dive. We grew. When I took over the reins, it was a financially distressed organization. Today, they are a financially stable organization. So I have a proven record of taking organizations or situations which are in financial distress, coming up with creative ways to work out of it and put the organization on a long-term healthy path, because I always focus on where are we going. I would very much appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for your time, and we ask that you visit the meet and greet area to continue the discussion with anybody who might want to ask some questions directly. Thank you very much. So we are going to quickly set up for Finance Committee. We are asking Denise Hurley, Roy Resnick, and Richard Tressel to come up The other two candidates who are running, Stan Starr and Sarah Williston, could not be here. They have given statements, and we will read that when you guys do your closing statements. So we can give you as much time as you need to come up. So you are on the third seat? No, you're on the second seat, sorry. Denise, you're the first one?
Right here?
And
Yes.
you're over here. It's being taped. The owl is right there taping us the cable right now. And Ken is taking some pictures just for our social media share. How are you? It's up to you. I'd be more comfortable. More important that you're comfortable. Okay, I think we are just quickly. Okay, so now that we've got everybody in place, we have 2 3-year seats available this year for the FinCom. And again, we have 5 people running. These are for 2 3-year seats. Denise Hurley, Roy Rezek, Stan Starr, who could not be here tonight, Richard Tressel, and Sarah Williston, who could not be here tonight. So we will start the opening statements and then ask a couple of questions. And Denise, you're up first for your opening statement, 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everybody here. I'm originally from Dorchester, and I moved out here 45 years ago, and I loved every minute of being here in Lancaster and being part of this community. I live with my partner, Jean Serrier. I'm sure a lot of people know Jean. And I have a disabled son. I have 2 grandsons and 2 great-grandsons. It's a lovely family that we have. A lot of activity, a lot of fun. I'm on several committees as well. I'm on the Lancaster Friends of the Seniors. I'm on the Lancaster BOH, Lancaster Cultural Council, and I'm the moderator, one of the moderators for the Lancaster MA Massachusetts Facebook page. I'm running for Finance Committee because I am concerned about the financial health of our town. Along with the other Finance Committee members, I would like to work hand in hand with the members of the BOS and town administrator to continue the work of the present committee, how best to go forward to stabilize our town finances and make sure that the town residents understand why we need to do an override and how we can bring our town back from any uncertain future. Thank you.
Roy?
Yes, when people find out I'm running for Finance Committee, I'm typically asked 3 questions. First one is, why are you running? Then, who are you? And why should people vote for you? So let me try and give you the answers to those. Why am I running? Well, as I noted at last year's annual town meeting with that $1 budget proposal I made that many of you approved, okay? We, taxpayers of Lancaster, need more financial information, and we need it much earlier in the process than we had been getting. Thanks to good work that has been done this year, okay, we are now getting much more financial information. How to improve it is, ongoing discussion, but at least we're getting the information. So that was the first point. The second point is I see that Lancaster faces both short-term and long-term financial issues. I think with my 40 years of experience in business management, both proposing and meeting budgets, I can help with that. And finally, to paraphrase John Stuart Mill, who said, the way for the evil forces of inflation and cost increases to triumph is for good people to remain silent. I can no longer remain silent. Who am I? I lived in Lancaster for 13 years. I've got 40 years of experience in software engineering development management, proposing projects, budgets to deliver those projects, and delivering successful products to the marketplace. I was heavily involved in my church in various leadership roles. I was the liaison to the finance committee. I've been on personnel committees, search committees, so I have a broad range of both financial and management experience. Also worked with the Boston YMCA to greatly improve a committee that they had there. So we get down to, all right, but why would I ask you to vote for me? It comes down to a couple of things. I want FinCom to be the trusted financial advisor and proactive taxpayer advocate on financial issues.
You will have a closing statement. Richard?
Thank you to the Land Trust. I'm seeking your support for re-election to the Finance Committee. Bit of background, I own my own business for over 30 years, 52 plus employees throughout the United States. When I sold it and retired, I was solicited to run a 501c3 not-for-profit national company helping women with breast cancer, which has always been an object of my interest. When I retired from that, after 11 years, I was bored. So I ran for Finance Committee. I am currently your representative to the Neshoba Budget and Warrant, Neshoba School Committee Budget and Warrant Committee. I am also your representative to the Neshoba Board Audit Committee, a voting member. I'm also your representative to the Minuteman School Committee. I have the time, the desire, the background, and the experience to service these for you. And I'm going to leave it at that because what else I have to say is probably going to be a question. Thank you.
Stop reading my mind. These questions are going to sound very familiar if you were listening to the selectmen, since the two of you have very similar issues that you deal with. We're going to start with the basics. What do you believe the role of the Finance Committee is, and why are you the most qualified person to serve at this time? And we're going to start with Roy.
I believe the role of the Finance Committee should be to be the trusted financial advisor to the town's taxpayers, as well as the proactive advocate for the taxpayers. The Finance Committee has to be involved in the myriad of discussions that go on way before the warrant is published, to help make sure we evaluate multiple financial options and select the best ones. When you get down to the time of the warrant, about all you can do is check the math, okay? That's not leverage. That's not time to influence things. So I think that's the fundamental thing that the Finance Committee needs to do is those two aspects. Be trusted financial advisor, so when the Finance Committee says, these numbers add up, we think this is a good approach for the town, both short-term and the long-term trade-offs we need to look at, and to be proactively involved in issues well before the warrants are developed.
Did you guess right, Richard?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
The role of the Finance Committee is defined by bylaw, and that is that any monetary involvement in the town needs the consideration of the Finance Committee. For that reason, I was the primary, but not the sole person that created the report from the Finance Committee on the North Lancaster development. The committee took neither a pro nor a negative approach to that. It was designed to give information to the voters. And that is what the function of the Finance Committee is, excuse me, in addition to advising, notice the word, the Select Board on the operating budget, the solar budget, and the water enterprise budget, not to mention capital affairs, etc. That's my answer to that question.
Denise?
I feel that it's important for the Finance Committee, yes, to present the numbers, present the budget, present what's in front of us. But I also think it's important that the Finance Committee partnership with the BOS, all the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, and with the townspeople. I think we all need to work together so we understand the budget and that we can come up with the best plan to go forward for our town. I mean, it's really, really important. Let me just say, the override is coming. That is a very important thing. I am for the override. But I also think that we need to work together, all the departments, everyone together to understand what that means for us as a town. And we're all in this together, and the override is very important. So I think it is the Finance Committee's responsibility to present that information. It's not an easy thing to tell people that we got to do an override. We have to do this, but it's our responsibility as an advisory board to let people know how important it is for us to work together, do the hard things to stabilize our town.
Some of these, Denise did touch on the override, but we're going to ask anyways. The town is facing financial issues which have been brewing for a while. Do you favor the proposed override? If yes, why? If no, what would you like to see in its place to address the fiscal problems? And we are starting with Richard.
As usual, I have a middle answer. I voted for it. I proposed it. I am upset that we need it, but I'm also the person who proposed and will not relinquish the idea of an underride. And that will not be forgotten by the Finance Committee or the Select Board. What this town needs is not permanent taxes. They need a loan, a temporary loan from you. And that's how I would approach the whole idea of an override. Now, the long-term, I'm going to make a statement that I'll back up. 2 years from now, you will be very, very financially well off as a town. 4 years from now, we will be financially independent. And 6 years from now, you wonder what all this was about. If we keep our nose to the grindstone and learn to save and spend wisely, not wildly. That's been our problem. We finally have a TA and a finance director for the with long-term planning. And the reason I can say the 2-year, 4-year, 6-year plan is I've already done that analysis, and if the economy stays exactly the same as it is, we will accomplish those goals. Please help us get through 1 year, and we'll be all right after that. Your home values will increase, your town will be financially independent, and the new school will be totally paid for. Thank you.
Denise?
As I said, I am for the override. And primarily because it's what we need to get through this crisis right now. If we don't vote the override, we're not going to have the services we have now. And I'm asking everyone in town, do you like what we have now? Do you like the services? Do you like how things are running? I don't know if people went to the forum or watched the forum the other night, and all the department heads told you what they offer to our town. Now, I'll tell you, this is just going to be a short-term deal. Short-term. We just got to do this right now. And then
What's next step?
then things will get better. We'll work towards stabilizing. We need to stabilize what's going on here in town. The other thing is, we have to think about a credit rating. I mean, it's like your own home with your credit cards. If you have a high interest rate, which will happen if we don't pass the override, you know. We need to level our services and keep them the way they are because our services are great. I guess someone told me today that the banks like to see $1 million in our stabilization fund. Okay, so we need to make sure that we get that stabilization fund back up. Can't do free cash. We got to have a stabilization fund. And the only way we're going to do it is do the override. So the other thing I want to talk about is some of the things that we have. Oh, I have to stop.
You'll have your closing statement.
Okay, thank you.
Relative to the override, yeah, I looked at the first round of override information back in February. And at that point in time, I was absolutely against it. I thought about the set of issues that Lancaster families have been going through. The increase in food prices, okay? Food inflation, I think, was 10.5% at that point in time. We just gotten that electricity bill in January. Oh my goodness, 33% increase, wow. Okay, other costs of living were dramatically up. How could we ask families to pay this additional amount of money was the question going through my mind. And what could we do here in Lancaster to avoid that? Well, I put pencil to paper or Excel spreadsheet and came up with 17 different recommendations I made, some of which were relatively straightforward to do and reasonable, which Kate Hodges, our town administrator, listened to, decided to implement some of them. They made sense. There were some of them that I went from a financial point of view and said, okay, if we really have to cut the budget, what could we do? How deep could we go, this kind of thing? And many of those, after I put them on paper just to make sure I went through it, I said to Kate, and I don't recommend doing these. This is too deep in our services. So at this point in time, I support the current override request that's being made.
We are going to go now to closing statements. We do have 5 candidates for 2 seats. So in alphabetical order, when we get to those candidates, I will be reading the statements for Stan Starr and Sarah Williston. So we're going to start with Denise.
In closing, I don't really have like a financial background. I run a small business, Wachusett Music, Lancaster Coffee House. Maybe a lot of people are familiar with that. So it's a small little business. I had to, there were finances involved in it, negotiation with contracts, that type of thing. So I've done that sort of thing. I've worked in business all my life. I worked for digital. I worked for small nonprofits, in the front office as a sport person. So I understand business. But my role was never really financial, but I understand business. I understand people. I understand what's important to maintain a healthy business. So that's what I offer. And my knowledge of the town, I've been doing all kinds of things in this town for many, many years. I know a lot of you. And I want to continue that work. I want to continue to add value to the different offices in this town. I want to help people. Right now, my biggest thing is helping seniors with the Friends of the Lancaster Seniors. We are trying very, very hard to make sure that they are not forgotten, that we have finances, we have fundraising, we have a lot of stuff going on to make sure there's money for them to help our seniors stay in their homes and enjoy the rest of their lives in here. So that's also part of what I want to do with what I do in town. So thank you very much.
As I started to state before, I think FinCom should be the trusted financial advisor to the taxpayers of Lancaster, as well as the proactive advocate on financial issues for the taxpayers. The taxpayers need a representative doing these things early on in the process, working with the other committees that have the responsibility, planning board, et cetera, these kinds of things, select board, but being in there and making proactive recommendations relative to financial options, not just taking one financial option at the end, checking and say, yeah, those numbers add up. That's not what Finance Committee needs to do. It's your money, taxpayers. What do you want us to do, okay? Second is, I think we have to do comparison to similar towns in terms of budgets and really productivity metrics. Not how much are we spending, but what capability are we getting for the dollar spent? How many miles of snow-plowed roads are we getting for a dollar that we spent? How does that compare to other towns? We need to do that type of thing. That's what the comparison should be on. Third, I see the financial issues as both in a comprehensive manner. We face short-term issues, the override, other budget issues for this year's budget, and the long-term issues. How many of you have been to a meeting in which you heard people say, Lancaster has big, long-term financial issues? Okay? How many of you have been to a follow-up meeting or know what those issues are and that kind of thing? We need to start getting them down on a list, figuring out who's managing these issues, where do they stand, what do we need to do, next set of action items, all those kinds of things. Okay? Couple last points here. One is, I fundamentally have seen in business that good problem-solving process leads to good problem solutions. You can't jump in with a favorite solution at the and say, this is what we're going to drive to, let's do that. You need to start up front in kind of a modification to the phrase is escaping me, the one.
Wrap it up.
Okay, all right.
You can all talk to him out there.
All right.
I'm going to give Richard one more break because I'm going to read Stan Starr, who is next in alphabetical order. Again, I am not Stan Starr, but my name is Stan Starr, and I live at 34 Square Shayla Lane. I'm sorry I'm unable to be present this evening due to a previous long-standing commitment out of town tonight. I'm a candidate for one of the 2 Finance Committee positions in this year's election. I'm not a stranger to Lancaster volunteering positions, as I have volunteered my services over the past 20 years, among others to the Lancaster Cultural Council, the Lancaster Community Center Board of Directors, served on a number of town search committees, including the Neshoba Regional Superintendent of Schools. I was elected town moderator. Most recently, I was elected 7 years as a select person, 5 years as chairperson. More germane to the FinCom position that I'm seeking, I have previously served on both the town of Lancaster and neighboring Clinton's finance committees collectively for over 10 years. Having served our town on a variety of boards, commissions, and both appointed and elected positions, I believe I have attained a very solid working knowledge of the financial details within this community. I've gotten to know many of the town employees and have worked together with the town department heads, including police, fire, and DPW. In addition, I have been fortunate to have met a good number of individuals who live outside of Lancaster that might prove beneficial in working together for potential mutual benefit and collaborations. I believe we have a very good workforce that serves this community well. Communication within all departments and with town residents should be a priority. We should work more collaboratively with expanded partnerships with developers in other towns to reduce the cost of doing business and help relieve the increasing financial burden of residential real estate taxes. Sorry, Stan, I'm butchering your words. We need to stay focused on both short and long-term financial vision and work to remove Lancaster from the top 7% of the most expensive real estate rates within the Commonwealth. Thank you for your consideration in voting for my candidacy. Richard, you can do yours, and then I will read Sarah's.
I would like to also add that from the Finance Committee currently, I am your liaison to the Fire Department, the Police Department, CPA, the Library, a specialty of mine, the Recreation Commission, the Historical Commission, and the Veterans Commission, because I'm a veteran. Because I have those experiences, we talked about the requirements of a Finance Committee member that go beyond simply the numbers. It goes to making sure that all of the other boards financially are operating in the interest of the town. What was not mentioned on the override possibility is, I don't know if you know it, but 18.7% of this town is 65% years of age or older. Those people are going to be heavily affected to the tune of about $400 to $500. We must find monies for them. This year I was able to get $1,499 in fuel assistance for people. It's out there. We have a Health and Human Services division using wheat and mock and several things. So combining all of the aspects of a Finance Committee member, you must have a lot of time and you must have the interest to delve into things. Because I have that, I do ask for your support and for your vote on May 8th. Thank you.
And we do have one final candidate, Sarah Williston, who could not be here. And I apologize if I butcher any of her words. Thank you for the opportunity to submit a statement this evening. Due to a conflict with the middle school band concert, I am unable to attend in person. This spring, I am running for a 3-year term on the Lancaster Finance Committee. I'm a graduate of Bentley University, where I earned a bachelor's degree in accounting information systems. For over 20 years, I have worked as a corporate accountant. I've lived in Lancaster for 15 years with my husband, Russ, who served for 6 years as chairman of the town's planning board. Our daughter is a student at Luther Burbank Middle School. I served as treasurer of the local Moms Club during her preschool years, and then as troop leader for Girl Scouts through elementary school. Our daughter is currently on a competitive dance team, and on any given weekend you might find me at one of her competitions. The Finance Committee serves an important role in Lancaster. The bylaw that establishes the committee grants us access to all of the records of the town with a mandate that we investigate and report to the town all pertinent facts related to appropriations, expenditures, borrowing, and disposition of property. When you step to the ballot box on May 8th to pick 2 new members, you should pick candidates who you believe will thoroughly examine those records and report back faithfully to you. For this election, I will be 3 things. I'm the only candidate with a child in the Lancaster school system. I'm notably the youngest candidate for Finance Committee. I can bring a different perspective than the others on the ballot. I'm the only candidate with a degree in accounting or professional experience as an accountant. My family has a long commitment to transparency in Lancaster, and you can trust me to report back faithfully to you on the town's financial choices. Thank you to the Lancaster Land Trust for organizing this evening, and to Jan Gottesman for moderating it. I'm looking forward to the election. If I can answer any questions, I have a website with my contact information at swfinancecommittee.com. So that is the 5 people running for Finance Committee. Thank you all for participating. If you do have any specific questions, you can bring them out to the meet and greet, and I'm sure these people will be happy to answer them. We're going to transition to Board of Health next.
Pleasure.
This meeting. Oh, sorry.
Is that the air conditioning?
Yeah,
Freezing. Any chance you could turn on just like? No.
I don't work for the town. Kate in the white and black sweater is the town administrator. Melinda, is it Apgar?
Apgar, like the baby test?
Your name I think I can pronounce. If I butcher anything, I apologize ahead of time. Okay, we will now move on to the Board of Health. There are 2 candidates running for a 3-year seat, Melinda Apgar and Lisa Engel.
Engel, yeah.
So I said I could do it, and then I doubted myself. We'll start with opening statements and ask Melinda to go first.
Hello, my name is Melinda Apgar. I'm a resident of Lancaster, Massachusetts since January 2012 when my husband and I moved here. I'm interested in joining the Board of Health because they perform important functions in regards to the protection of the public health, the environment, controlling disease, and promoting sanitary living conditions. The Board of Health fosters respect through serving as an invaluable resource and in assisting the town in responding to inquiries and complaints on matters affecting the public health. I am a wife and a mother to 3 amazing kids, and I have a background that sets me up nicely to fill this position. In my past life, I have over 18 years in quality assurance field with expertise in assessing, identifying, and prioritizing risk to help operations. I understand core compliance issues. I understand the balance between maintaining compliance while accommodating the operational requirements of a business. I believe these skills will transcribe well to the functions required of the Board of Health. In addition, I mentioned my 3 beautiful sons. My oldest son is medically complex and medically fragile. He suffers from spinal muscular atrophy type 1. He suffers from chronic respiratory failure. He's G-tube fed. He suffers from severe osteopenia, just to name a few. I'm the primary caretaker, and I understand the difficulties that come with a life that requires living differently. I've always been driven to help others and my community, and I've been out of the role for a long time. And I feel like I have an opportunity to give back. And I want to get back in the field of working again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Engel. My husband's family has lived in Lancaster since 1961. My bachelor's degree is from Wellesley College in astronomy. During the period of time that I was attending there, I co-authored several scientific papers in the Astrophysical Journal. I subsequently took graduate courses at Arizona State, and a job opportunity to run the 12-meter radio telescope on Kitt Peak outside of Tucson came up, and I did that for a little bit over 5 years. And then the Hubble Space Telescope came about, and they were talking about retiring the ground-based telescopes. And so my husband and I started a software company, and at the request of some of our associates who were attorneys in family law, we developed and sold legal software addressing child support and arrearages, transitioning later in the company to consulting for software quality in the life sciences, including pharma and med devices. We moved here in 2004 to become caregivers for my mother-in-law, who was subsequently, very shortly afterward, diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she passed in 2011. At the beginning of the pandemic, we found ourselves with a brand new contract and no idea of how to pursue it, so I became semi-retired, which was a fortunate thing because it turned out that I was going blind, which I did within 2 years, and then it took me another 1.5 years to get both of my surgeries done. So I am at a position in my life where I'm saying, what am I doing? How can I apply my scientific background in research and curiosity about all things in environmental science, food safety? I have many certifications that I kind of do just for fun. And I need to stop now.
Very good. Since you both kind of answered the question of the role of the Board of Health and why you're the right person, we're going to skip over that one and go straight to, with the pandemic winding down, what are the major priorities of the Board of Health going forward, and how would you address that priority? Melinda, we're going to start with you. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we're going to start with Lisa on that one, because I skipped a question, so I skipped my lines, yes.
Well, I've been attending quite a few meetings, and including with the NABH, which we're part of that consortium with 15 other towns. Littleton, may or may not be part of that consortium in the next 2 years or so. There are some issues coming up with them. In the last quarterly meeting about a week ago, they are having financial issues, and they are looking at dropping their nursing and hospice services. They can't find staff, and they're losing, as I understood it, $400,000 per year. So that is something that we're going to have to bridge the gap on. In addition, Lancaster is going through significant changes. We have development coming in that we've never seen before. At the same time, we remain a right-to-farm community. And there are, the Board of Health covers 60 different areas that encompass, so many potential issues that may come about as a result of development, and how that, hopefully, won't conflict with, but may create new health issues as a result of this new construction that's coming in.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. With the pandemic winding down, what are the major priorities of the Board of Health going forward, and how would you address that priority?
So, the major priorities of the Board of Health going forward, in my mind, are to address the issues that come forward on an as-need basis, protecting the public health, protecting the environment, controlling disease, making sure that we're understanding the data that surrounds these things, and making sure that we are promoting sanitary living conditions for our seniors. We've got a lot of issues going on with the seniors right now and providing housing for them. We've got some space that's available for them, and it's not, potentially it can be utilized for housing the seniors, and right now there's no real option for them. So opening up some other opportunities that come forward, every day brings on new things that arise to the Board of Health on the agendas, and simple things from beaver dams to making sure that the the sanitary conditions for your septic systems are appropriate for the number of bedrooms in your houses. So, the list goes on for the things that come forward to the Board of Health. And, I don't know that there's necessarily a plan. It's just kind of dealing with what the needs of the Lancaster residents are.
Okay, second question, and you do get to answer this one first.
Just 1 second,
Sure.
because I think there's something messed up that you can't see the candidates. And you can't see Jim. So
Shucks.
I'm sorry if this blocks. Oh, my God. Okay.
Okay, so for the second question, the owl just doesn't like me. You can hear me. You don't really need to see me. Nobody's voting for me. Do you understand the time commitments of this office, including meeting and homework time? And is this something you're able to commit to? I'm just going to start with Melinda on this one.
I understand the time commitments that are required for the member for the Board of Health, and I am committing myself to the position on the Board of Health. I'm not applying for the position on the Finance Committee and the Planning Board, and, I am applying for the position of the Board of Health. So I don't have a lot of information coming at you from other boards. I would be focused on the requirements for the Board of Health.
Lisa?
My understanding from talking with current and previous members of the Board of Health is that it will probably be a minimum 40-hour-a-week commitment. I'm more than prepared to do that. I kind of have all the time in the world. And in addition to that, I have already begun to educate myself with respect to specific issues, PFAS in particular. I've attended multiple webinars. I've been attending, as I said, meetings with the NAHB. I belong to several societies that allow me access to material, both legal, regulatory, and informational that require a membership, such as the MAHB, which is the Massachusetts version, statewide of health boards. And the fact of the matter is, I'm dedicated to these topics. I'm infinitely interested. I'm kind of a nerd in that way, and I will continue to participate with respect to these issues, even if I'm not elected.
We're going to roll right into closing statements, and Lisa, you're going to go first.
I think I've pretty much covered it. I think your second question was what I was going to say with my closing statements, but yeah, I'm fully committed at this point in time.
Melinda?
I just want to thank everybody for their contributions for making tonight happen, and I'm especially grateful for the support of my family and friends. I want to congratulate all of the contestants on their hard work and dedication in running for the open positions on these boards. It's only through the dedication of these volunteers that we can best assist the people of Lancaster.
Thank you very much. Thank you for participating. And remember, there's one 3-year seat for the Board of Health to be filled at the election. We are going to transition over to Planning Board. There are 2 contested seats, but we're going to ask everybody to come up so we can do all the questions at the same time. These nice people get out. Hopefully the people at home, if they don't have picture, they're enjoying the radio. No problem.
People will have to fill in the blank.
Thank you.
I think it was Mike's.
No, I got rid of that last week.
That's where I am.
And I will call on you, so if you're sitting where your thing is not, just put your name tag in front of you for now, and we'll make it work.
Thanks so much.
Should I just sit there?
Just bring it, yeah, just bring it with you. And
Still me.
Hi, I'm Mike. I don't think we met.
Hi, Becca.
Nice to meet you.
so we don't need Michael King or Jacqueline yet. Let me have those 2. Just so we don't confuse anybody in the audience, since we don't know, I'll take that one too.
Yeah, she's running for school.
Yep. Okay. So this is going to be a little confusing, but we know you people can all handle it. We've invited up the people who are running for Planning Board. We have 2 different contested seats that we have up here. Mike Favreau and Rebecca Young-Jones are running for the 1-year seat, and Regina Brown and Carl Fawcett are running for the 2-year seat. Did I get that right? Yay! So we're going to start with the one-year seat, and we're going to ask Mike Favreau to give his 2-minute opening statement.
Sure. Good evening, Lancaster residents. My name is Mike Favreau. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. I currently have a seat on the planning board. I've been a longtime resident of Lancaster, Massachusetts. My family came here in 1947, so I think I'm invested. I grew up here. I went to Neshoba Regional High School. Then I graduated there, went to the University of Massachusetts. When I came out of college, I went to work with my dad in construction. So construction has been my background and my current job. I own my own company. I have for 30 years. So that's what I bring to the table at the planning board. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm a good listener, and I work with my other members, which I think is the biggest important thing you can do. When you have a variety of people that bring different assets to the table, and you can mix and come up with a good answer to a problem, I think that's important. So I'm not going to stand here before you today and pretend that I know everything, because I don't. But I've learned a lot from the other members, and I enjoy the planning board, and I want to make Lancaster a better community for all of us. Thank you.
So we're going to go to the other candidate for the one-year seat, which is Rebecca Young-Jones.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Young-Jones. I've lived in this area of Massachusetts for about 35 years. I'm going on my 23rd year in Lancaster. I built my home in Lancaster in 99, and I had to go through all the boards to get that accomplished, the CONSCOM, the CBA, the planning board. So I'm well in tune with Lancaster's boards as they regards residential development. So Lancaster is now my hometown, my community, and like others, I love Lancaster. I'm running for planning board because big changes are underway in this area and in Lancaster. I would like to be able to ask good questions of people proposing changes and help guide projects, both commercial and residential, to be the best for us in this community. The community and environment of this town are the attributes that we see, smell, and hear as indications of our quality of life. Seeing a main street where people walk, kids ride bikes, and you can smile and wave at neighbors is rare elsewhere, but we have it in Lancaster. Lancaster is a place where people love posting their photos of natural beauty. They find here the sunsets, the hills, the farmlands, the waters of the Nashua. Thank you. And the lovely history that we have. Making good choices by asking good questions can help us preserve this quality of life. Thank you.
So now we're going to go to the 2-year seats, and we're going to start with Regina Brown for her 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Jan. Hi, I'm Regina Brown. I live on High Street Extension here in Lancaster. What? Speak up. Okay. My relationship with this town started when I was 18. I was first employed in what was called emergency dispatch because it couldn't be called 911 because we didn't even have a push-button phone at the time. We ran CVs, and we got to know this town. There's very little over the years I don't know about this town and the landscape and the people who have come and gone. When dispatch closed and just before, I was picked up by the chief as a matron. So it's a good thing some of you have not seen me because we'd be like at the hotel down there at Lancaster PD. But I still retain that to this day. On the private side, I've worked for the same employer for 32 years, and I work a lot collaboratively. We do strategic planning in the area I'm in, and we have to listen to people
and you bring back ideas, and then you foster those ideas into major plans, and you put them together. And I think that's the skill set I can bring to the planning board. I'm also a member of the Lancaster Women's Auxiliary, where we support the fire department. And so you may have seen me on the parade route doing the water bottles. When my daughter was younger, I did Lassie League and cheerleading and all those great things you volunteer for. So now that my daughter is older and things are easier, I want to volunteer for the planning board, because at the time when it opened up, there was many open seats. So I saw a need and put myself out there. Thank you.
And Carl, you'll.
Good evening. Thank you for attending tonight. I'm Carl Fawcett. I'm running for the 2-year position at the Planning Board. My wife Sharon and I have lived here for 22 years, and we raised our kids here. Over my 40 years of working in energy conservation, I've gained the experience in management, problem solving, and consensus building. This, I believe, will help you and me in performing this role. I feel with my experience, I can help the town navigate a challenging time. I'm in the place of my life that I'm now doing part-time consulting, so I have time to give back to the town and the community. If elected, I will take a balanced approach to development and the impact on our town, always putting the interests of Lancaster first. I will encourage the town and state to enact changes that ease traffic and congestion and increase the safety on our streets. I will promote honest and transparent town governance. My goal is to balance the need of increasing our tax base and the quality of life we have in our town. My family moved here because we loved the town and the area, and that active farms were nearby and the schools were good. We have found great neighbors and neighborhoods that we have enjoyed being part of. I'm asking for your vote on May 8th.
So you've now heard them in the bunches. Now we're going to go to strict alphabetical order so that I can keep my sanity or what little is left. So the first question is going to start with Regina. What is the role of the planning board in your opinion, and why are you the right person to serve on this board?
I feel the general purpose of the planning board is to provide for and guide the orderly growth and development of the community. This is accomplished primarily through the development of a master plan, the zoning bylaws, and the planning board's rules and regulations. I believe I'm the right person because as a skill set, I am very adaptable. I love to collaborate and also follow within the rules. Very black and white. It's within the rules. So in short, that's it.
I think the role of the planning board is to take the information that's given to us, be it a project, digest it amongst each other, talk about the pros, the cons, expose that information to hopefully the listeners, our town administrators, and everyone else that's involved to make the right decision for the town so that we can move forward and prosper.
And we're down to Carl.
Well, I think the role of the planning board is you're distilling the projects, you're evaluating the projects that come before us. So to evaluate them, to ask the questions, to, I think, discuss the projects so that we get the best project for the town. And I think, why am I right for this position is I think with the background I have of management, problem solving, and working as teams, and a good listener, I think it gives me the skills to be very effective in this.
All of the above. So the planning board, in my experience, has been the authority by which developments and projects get done in Lancaster on construction sites, and that we need to go by the general bylaws and also mass state law as far as what is and isn't allowed. Basically, to come to an understanding with the people that are proposing their projects and working with them to make sure that whatever they're doing is both legal and the best for Lancaster is why I'm running for planning board, and to ask those good questions.
The second question, and because Mike did the first opening statement, we're going to let Carl answer first, so everybody gets to go first. This board involves a lot of reading, research, and homework, if you will. Do you have the time and expertise to achieve this so the work of the planning board can be done efficiently and in concert with other departments in town?
Yes, as I said before, I'm now part-time consulting for my employment. I do have the time, I have the experience of reading technical information, distilling it to people. I've done that throughout my whole work life. And so I can handle the technical stuff, I think ask the questions, and if we don't know the answer, then we have to do the research, bring in consultants, and I think as a group, we're much stronger as a group instead of individuals as with the planning board.
So I'm coming off of 42 years of purchasing and finance. I've worked in the electronic industry that whole time. And a lot of my job included facilities work, others such moving companies, looking for space for companies, doing stuff like that. So I am fully committed to spending as much time as I need. I am retired and available to work as hard as I need to make sure that I'm on top of the issues in front of the planning board.
Regina?
So the answer to the time, yes. The ability to read, yeah, I learned that in Neshoba. But the technical part of it, I'm not afraid to ask the question. The smartest people in the room who think they know everything are not the smartest people in the room. The smartest person in the room is how to leverage the knowledge of others for the greater gain. And I truly believe that. Thank you.
And Mike?
So, as I did in high school and college, I ended up cheating on my homework. I either asked Kendra or George or Fred. No, I'm only kidding. I try and get as much information as I can what's sent to me, and usually we have all that in front of us through email. But sometimes you don't understand all of what you're looking at. So, like I said, this isn't a one-member board. It's a 5-member board. So it's important to take advantage of the other members and their knowledge. And that's what I found is very important, because someone may have a great background in construction like myself. Someone has a better background in something else. So if you're going to be part of a board that's going to be productive, you better be part of a team. And that's pretty much it.
Now we're going to go to the closing statements, and we're going to start with Rebecca.
Well, so I think the planning board is probably going to be one of the most critical boards, or is the most critical board right now for us as far as the changes that are happening to Lancaster. And I really would like to work with the board on asking good questions, getting the answers that we need to make sure that the developments in town are what we want, and also that we understand all the ramifications of what's going to happen in town when the developments are finally completed. And a lot of things are changing, they continue to change, and somebody in particular. The planning board needs to keep their eyes on everything that is going on, and there's a lot going on. So I would like to participate in that. Thank you.
Regina.
So I'm going to steal words from one of my favorite movies, Harry Potter. So in the words of Dolores Umbridge, progress for the sake of progress must be discouraged. Preserve what must be preserved. I love that statement because progress is only possible with change, but we have to weigh the change. We have to make educated decisions about that change. And to me, every time I watch those planning board meetings, I think of Dolores Umbridge saying, progress for the sake of progress. We have to be careful with that. And that's what I'd like to bring to the board.
I joined the planning board to make a difference. We've covered a lot of ground in the time I've been there, but I'm not complete yet. And I'm one of these guys that doesn't like to stop until I feel like I've done my job. And I don't feel like I've done my job completely. So I'm asking you to help me complete my job by giving me your vote. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think the planning board is a critical board, and I think critical in the short term and the long term to help the town transition and increase the development in a sane way. I think it's asking the important questions and digging into the details and working as a team to come to those decisions. I believe the best days for Lancaster are basically ahead of us, that we can grow together and for our future, and that an effective planning board is a critical element to succeeding that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at carl.fawcett13@gmail.com. I thank you for being here today, and I'm asking for your vote on May 8th.
So thank you all for participating. A reminder, so there are 2 seats. Mike Favreau and Rebecca Young-Jones are running for the 1-year seat. And then we have Regina Brown and Carl Fawcett running for the 2-year seat.
I have a question. Do we get to keep these?
I was going to ask that too, Mike.
So we are going to do school committee, the contested seat for school committee, please.
I can't believe I did that.
You don't want it. You really don't want it. I've never heard a villain actually quoted as Candidates Night before. It's kind of fun. And this is our final contested race. We are still under time, which is good. I feel like we've got a stopwatch over our head. So I want to thank everybody for participating. We have 3 people running for 2 3-year seats on the Neshoba Regional School Committee: Michael King, incumbent Sharon Park, and Jacqueline Reiner. So we're going to start in alphabetical order with Michael's opening statement.
Good evening. So, my name is Michael King. I am the father of 2 young children in Mary Bollinson. I've worked as an engineer and a manager in high-tech spaces for many years. I got my master's at BU. I met my wife while I was attending school there, and she's kept me here ever since. So I'm passionate about childhood education, particularly being the father of 2 special needs children on the spectrum. More so, I would say, following the experience of our children during COVID, we need to maintain our focus on core academics more than ever before. All of our children need to be applied equally to the curriculum that they're participating in. We have to have the courage to at times be the dissenting voice. I think courage has been a theme that we need to remind ourselves of after the past 3 years, and not repeat the mistakes of the past. We need to be laser focused on academic fundamentals, not politics We need to teach critical thinking and empower the parents in engaging in their child's education. As someone who does not work directly in any of the school districts right now, I believe I would bring a voice, a needed voice of diversity to the board as a bit of an outsider when we desperately need it right now. Thank you.
Sharon?
My name is Sharon Pock. I am currently serving as a member of the school committee, and I'm looking to continue that work for another term. My family and I have lived in Lancaster for 25 years. I have 3 children. My oldest 2 children are Neshoba graduates. My youngest is a sophomore at Neshoba. I've had experiences working with all of the Lancaster schools as a parent and as a supporter of the schools. That is not to say that I have not challenged them at times. There have been several occasions where I believe firmly that they could do better, and I did not hesitate to advocate for my children on those occasions. And I strive to be an advocate for all children and all families. I also worked for nearly 30 years as a preschool teacher and administrator, working with young children and their families and with teachers. I am passionate about education. And the experiences that I had working with families and young children helped me to see a big picture of how families and schools work together, how they can work to promote excellence for our children, how they can support each and every child that comes through the doors of our schools and to achieve their unique potential. I believe in our children. I believe in our families. I believe in our town. Lancaster is really a special place. I believe in the district's new mission statement, which we created as part of a strategic plan last year. And it says, "Together we inspire and challenge all learners to realize their unique potential and become active contributors to their community." And in our vision statement, "Be your best self, pave your path, and impact the world." Thank you.
Everybody's been very cooperative. I appreciate that. Jacqueline.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jackie Reinert, and I'm excited to be running for one of the 3-year Neshoba Regional School District terms for office. I've resided here in Lancaster since 2009, along with my husband, my 2 children, and I have a rescue pup who's from Mississippi. We chose Lancaster first and foremost because it provided a small town feel, plenty of open spaces, and quality education for our growing family. Since moving to town, I've had the privilege of supporting our schools and local community by serving on the MRE School Council. I've served as the secretary of the Lancaster PTO, and alongside the PTO work, I've also volunteered and supported the efforts of the Neshoba Special Education Parent Advisory Council. In that role, I served as a liaison to MRE and then subsequently to the middle school. And I participated in the development of a family questionnaire, which really looked at and assessed families' understanding of and access to special education in the district. Outside of those school-based services, I was also part of a special group fondly referred to as Alex's Angels. During the pandemic, I was paired with a local senior and did grocery shopping and hunting for toilet paper, like many of you probably did. So volunteering has been a really large part of my experience here in Lancaster, but I also have a background in mental health and a doctorate in counseling and school psychology, which has really afforded me an inside look into the growing mental health needs of our community, particularly that of our children and families. Is that a marker?
That was 30 seconds.
All right. So, one of the things that I want to just really share while I'm here is that oftentimes people are informally reaching out to me looking for support. And while I may not always have an answer for them, one of the things I really am very passionate about is really cultivating a sense of trust and community. And I think being able to do that in a more formal setting is an exciting opportunity.
First question. The school committee has almost a dual role. You're elected by the voters in general, but you also oversee the schools. Within the structure of town government, what do you see as the role of the school committee, And why are you the right person for the job? And Sharon, you get to go first.
I get to go first. Okay. So being on a regional school committee is a unique experience. It's unique work because we need to advocate for the families and children in our towns. We also need to advocate for a bigger picture, which includes the education of the entire district. And I believe that, well, I've been on the committee now for 3 years. It's been a challenging 3 years. But I also have seen over the past 3 years how the district, which for many years I felt was an incredibly strong district and poised to take off, and just things kept getting in the way. And in the last couple of years, I feel like we have just taken off, and it's a really exciting time to have children in Neshoba, to be a family at Neshoba. And I would really like to continue to work with the school committee and with the town of Lancaster to promote excellence for our children.
Jackie?
So it is a really unique role. I agree with a lot of what Sharon's just said. One of the things that I think is really important for people to understand and think about as a school committee member is that you're not only balancing the roles and the responsibilities and upholding the goals of the committee, but that you're also then able to make sure that we're holding our school district accountable. I think that being able to be an honest, open, and active consumer of the information that's being provided at school committee meetings, and then also really understanding and thinking about the unique landscape of Lancaster is an important part of the role that we have to take. Right now I work in a school, and I'm often put into the position of having to be not only an advocate but also hearing and understanding what the school district is asking of staff and of students, of families. So I do think that that's a skill set that I can carry into this role, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Sure. So I think it starts in the home. It starts with your family first, but then it goes out into your community. And what our kids are learning at school, they're going to grow up. And if we're not thinking about them and what they're learning, what's the point? So I look at all of these different committees, the towns that we live in. I love this town. It was the most exciting day of my life when I got to move to Lancaster because I came from Brooklyn, came from the big city. I got to move out here and I love the trees, I love nature, I love the trails I can hike. I love that sense of community. But I think those very values you learn in your home are then reinforced by your school. But I think it's also important that you kind of balance that with what the kids are being taught. They should be taught how to think, not what to think. We shouldn't be teaching children indoctrination. We should be teaching them how to think critically. And for that reason, I think school board is probably the most important role within a town, older than our country, in fact.
The second question, and just be prepared, you're going to answer first. What grade would you give to the Neshoba School District now? And what improvements would you like to see to move that grade higher?
We're using like an ABC scale?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we all know that one. So.
All right, so I would say right now I would give us a solid A-. I've followed the school committee since 2015. I actually reached out to a Lancaster resident when she was getting ready to step down from her position and strongly thought about running. I would have not given that same grade at that time. I think that the school committee has made tremendous progress, particularly in the last 3 to 4 years, to really think about not only the needs of the community, but what are the needs of the students who are part of that community. What I've noticed over time is that there has been a shift, and the school committee is being asked to think about and respond to things that may have moved beyond the scope of what we would have typically, prior to the pandemic, have to respond to. And the current school committee and the district has risen to that challenge. I give an A- because there's always room for improvement and there's always room for growth. I do think that the district now, under the current leadership of Superintendent Downing, they're ready, and this district and the committee are ready and able to, I think, continue to think about and really, I think, do the work that's needed to make sure that all students are adequately represented in Neshoba.
So I'd give us a B+. I have a lot of concerns. I think what the children have just gone through over the past 3 years is a real serious problem. I mentioned also that my children have special needs as well, so I'm particularly sensitive to this area. I talk to a lot of parents in the community. One of the reasons why we moved here is we have an excellent school district. We have a great reputation. When your children fit that mold. I think that we have a lot of children right now that we're leaving behind. I think there's some experimental education that's going on too at a time that we need to focus on fundamentals. We're getting off mission. Our mission is to try to teach these kids how to think. I think there's a lot of programs right now. These kids have been subjected to enough at this point, and I think we have to get back to our core mission of trying to teach them how to be good citizens and stewards of the future, and most importantly, how to separate their emotions from their thinking and thought process. I think kids, especially on social media, which is something they've been exposed to way more than any other generation, especially with the remote learning that we pushed on these kids, the masking that we had. There's a lot of work that we have to be focused on with these kids. So I think most importantly, that's why I'm saying we're a B+. I'd love to see us trend back upwards, but I have seen another side to this district, and I love the school, met a lot of great teachers. I'd love to get us back to that A. Thank you.
Sharon?
I find letter grades challenging. I feel like letter grade it's hard to accurately represent learning with a letter grade. That being said, I think if I had to give it a grade, I would say an A-. I think a lot about what Michael has said about teaching children to think and teaching children to be good learners. And I'd like to share with you some of the work that I was privileged to be part of last year in creating what's called the Portrait of a Graduate. And what it does is it has created or set 6 key competencies that we want all of our children to have when they leave high school. And these are the 6. We want our children to have a learner's mindset, to know how to learn. We want our children to have perseverance. We want them to be good communicators. We want them to be creative thinkers. We want them to have empathy. And we want them to be culturally competent global citizens. And I think that those 6 skills speak a lot to what the work of the district, the work that the district is doing right now to create these new learning opportunities. And I agree with you too, for all children.
We're going to go to our closing statements, and Mike, you get to go first on this one.
All right, thank you. So I think you've heard it a couple of times. I'm running on a families first platform. I think we have to find ways to create as much transparency and opportunity for families to participate in their children's education. There should be no secrets. There should be open dialogue and debate. That's where you learn it, in the home. It's okay to disagree, but it is a skill that needs to be practiced and honed over time. And it's one, sadly, especially in the days of social media where you want to get that last jab in, where I think we need it more than ever now. So I think going back to those fundamental academics, we should be helping each child achieve not by eliminating or lowering standards, but by helping them get there. We don't lower the bar because each child has that same capability within them. They need to learn the confidence that they can achieve. Most importantly, I think children need to be allowed to be children first and not taught, again, what to think, but how to think. So I absolutely agree. Our kids need solid, focused education. without activism or bias, now more than ever. And if we're not focused on the kids, what is the point of all this anyway? So I look at this and think if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything. You know, so I think teaching kids how to discern truth, presenting information with equanimity, but teaching them how to kind of find the truth, it takes work. It's not something often you can Google and just find at your fingertips. So teaching kids in this day when we're overwhelmed with information, how to discern it, I think that's a critical skill they're going to need going forward, more than any other generation. So thank you.
Sharon?
So I am currently serving as a member of the school committee, and I'm seeking a second term. I would really love your support to continue the important work that the school committee has been involved in and that I have had an opportunity to be involved in. This is a really exciting time for the district. And I'd just like to highlight a few of the things that I have worked on over the past few years. I have worked in participating in the search for and the hiring of our outstanding superintendent, Kirk Downing. I have served on the communications subcommittee, which has, among other things, advocated for clear and consistent communication throughout the district. I have participated in visioning workshops, which created or participated in the creation of the Neshoba Portrait of a Graduate, the competencies which I read to you just a couple minutes ago, and also creating a vision for the educational model that will be part of our new school building, hopefully. Hopefully we will get that new school building. The educational model is what we have committed to. I participated in a strategic planning group which analyzed and synthesized the data collected from Superintendent Downing's first year with the district to update our mission statement, to clarify our vision, to set goals for the district, and to create a plan to carry out those goals during the next 5 years. It's an ambitious plan, but it outlines the steps that the district will take to achieve those goals. I also am working with the DRJ Advisory, which is growing our understanding of diversity and equity, acceptance, racial and social justice. Thank you.
So I did mention that I wanted to run back in 2015 and then again in like 2017 and 19 and 2022 and now here. I was actually at that point in time, I had a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old and it was not the right time. I'm really excited to run this time because it is the right time. Very much, just to, I think, continue to echo the statements. I do think that we've really done a tremendous amount of really hard work. There has been a shift over the past 3 to 4 years, and I would be really eager to be a part of that continued growth and strengthening of our school district and our community. I do really feel like there's a lot of opportunity, and given the nature of my work, I do feel like I am in a really good spot to be able to, I think, support our students, our community, and families here in the district. I do think it's an ongoing conversation and that this, 2 minutes and round robin of being able to talk about how we think about the world, the views that we have, and ways in which we're going to help our students. But I would welcome anyone to reach out. I'm very active on social media, so feel free to shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and I can be reached via email at jackireinert@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer and talk through any questions that folks might have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you all for participating. So we have 2 3-year seats to be filled on the Neshoba Regional School Committee from Lancaster. Thank you very much. And while they're moving, I'm just going to let you know where we're going from here. Those are the end of our contested races. But we have several more candidates on the ballot, some of whom are here to make statements. We want to give them that opportunity so that everybody knows who they are. I'm going to start with Planning Board and ask George Franz if you'd like to come up and just say hi and why you're here and what you're doing. Not the existential. You can sit.
Thanks, Jane. What a remarkable crew. I was actually going to start das freut mich, Ihnen kennenzulernen, and see if anybody noticed that I wasn't speaking English. There have been so many words. I've been on the planning board for about a year, and it's been a real eye-popper for me. You know, I've followed the development of the committee for a long time because it shapes and guides and provides fence lines for what can be done and what will be done in the future of Lancaster. I wasn't born here. I grew up back east. I grew up again out west. We lived here since 1990. Both my kids went to Neshoba High School. My grandkids are there now. I love the town, but we could preserve it to death. I think any developer around in the area for the past 10 years would tell you Lancaster is incredibly hard to deal with. So here we are in a situation where we're looking at an override. 65% of our budget goes to run the schools, they're great schools and we love it, but that doesn't leave a whole lot for municipal services and everything else that needs to happen. So we need a commercial industrial base to provide more money for town operations. But you can't just throw the doors open and say we want development and so, you know, come on in. We're guided, the planning board is guided by state laws, we're guided by town bylaws and so forth. And we have to interpret those things carefully as we look at a developer coming in and you know, wanting to do a project. So you have to be open-minded, you have to be guided by facts, not agendas. You have to share, as Mike Favreau said, we share a lot of different experience on the planning board, and having those different experiences makes for a better group. I asked for your, I am running uncontested, but I wanted you to know how I feel about some of these things, and I would love it if you would vote for me. Thank you. Thank you,
George is running for a 3-year seat, so if he is uncontested, he's running for the 3-year seat. There's four different races going on, so for planning board, so trying to keep them all straight.
Do we do questions or are we?
We are not doing questions.
Great.
You are all set.
Thank you, Chief.
Does anybody have a statement from Frank Streeter? Was anybody asked to read one? Nope. Okay, we are going to move on. Frank is running for the 5-year seat. He could not be here. We thought there might be a statement, but he is running uncontested for the 5 years. So there's a 1-year seat with 2 people running contested, a 2-year seat with 2 people running contested, a 3-year seat uncontested, a 5-year seat uncontested. And there will be a test at the end, probably on May 8th. Next up, we're going to do the 1-year seat on the Neshoba Regional School Committee. Shandor Simon is currently filling the vacancy on the committee and is running to continue for the rest of the term.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Shandor Simon, and citizens of this great town of Lancaster, I come before you to seek your support and vote for me for school committee. I moved to Lancaster just 2 years ago after relocating from Illinois, and I've grown to love this town, and I'm so happy that I've moved here. And I volunteered and then was appointed to fill this vacancy on the school committee back in September. And there's 1 year remaining on my term, and while the position isn't contested, I want to let you all know a little bit about who I am. My fiance currently has a senior at Neshoba, and for 3 decades, I've devoted my life to education. My experience spans a wide range of roles, from working as a tech leader in 3 different schools. I launched a nonprofit with several other people called CS4IL that did computer science education advocacy in Illinois, and we were successful in getting legislation passed to support that. I served on the facilities steering committee at a school district called Comeric in Illinois when they renovated their main building and rebuilt another one. I presented at national conferences on tech and educational topics. One of my primary goals is to ensure that schools are safe, inclusive, and supportive spaces for all students, regardless of their background or their abilities. I believe every child deserves a chance to reach their full potential. I also focus on fiscal responsibility, ensuring that our resources are allocated effectively, and understanding that we must balance the needs of our students with the realities of the budget. I will continue to work hard to maximize the impact of every dollar we spend. Since joining the school committee, I've completed an 8-hour training offered by MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, attended every school committee meeting and policy subcommittee meeting on which I serve, and was fortunate to join the director of facilities for Neshoba to see the condition of the high school building. In conclusion, I humbly ask for your support in electing me to the school committee. I hope with my nearly 30 years of experience in schools and my dedication to education that I can help our town and help Neshoba Regional School District. If you have any questions, you can reach me at shander@gmail.com. That's SHANDR @gmail.com. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So we're gonna move to library trustees, which is our last uncontested race. And if you both wanna come up, we can have you answer, give your statements. We have 2 people running for 2 seats, Emily Rose and Adam Zand. They are both 3-year seats. They are not running against each other, they're running to work together. So why don't we start with Emily, since we're going in alphabetical order.
Thank you for hosting this land trust, and thank you for moderating, Jan. I'm running for re-election to the Board of Library Trustees. I've had the privilege of serving on the board for 33 years, many of them as chair of the board. Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Over my years as a trustee, the town and the library have experienced financial difficulties as the economy weathered downturns and slowly grew back. Each time, the board and the library staff have worked with the town to continue providing the excellent services our citizens need and expect. The library, which has been a leader among public libraries in the state since it opened in 1862, is now facing the prospect of severely curtailing services. I was chair of the board during our renovation and expansion. The entire process, from planning to completion, spanned several years, culminating in the rededication in November 1999 as Thayer Memorial Library. Now the library is in the midst of a feasibility study to address physical components which have gone beyond their lifetimes during the past 24 years. I believe my past experience and institutional knowledge are important in addressing these current challenges. I encourage every resident to visit the library this month, in person and online, to take advantage of the tremendous offerings available to residents of every age and ability. From streaming digital media to books, movies, video games, and in-person activities, there is something for everyone. Our original granite stone in front says it best: public library, free to all. I ask for your support and encourage all residents to attend and vote at the town meeting on May 3rd and the town election on May 8th.
I'm Adam Zand, and I'm voting for Emily. I love libraries. In the past 5 years, I've been to over 300 public libraries across the country and in Europe. And I think I've picked up some things along the way, including a revived love of these public institutions. I moved to Lancaster August 2021, and I met with Joe Muley, the library director, pretty early. He asked me to consider running, which I did, and he also named me the building committee. When Frank McGrory stepped down, I stepped up and was named as a trustee, and I love listening and learning and I guess sharing my experiences when prompted at our monthly meetings, and today we had a feasibility meeting. I guess I do think about what's next for the library, and Emily brings up just excellent points. Joe has worked on a strategic plan that will be open for everybody to look at. There are lots of options and lots of needs, and I think this time is an amazing opportunity for this community to, in some ways, sort of revive or refresh or take a wonderful institution and make it even better. And Joe did share those needs: HVAC, roof, carpeting, furniture, but he's also open to new uses for spaces that will appeal, I think, to current users, future users, and maybe people who have sort of forgotten to return to the library, as Emily has challenged us all to do. That's pretty much where I am. I guess in some ways I think COVID, I think a lot of us got out of the habit of visiting public libraries. So it was forced for a little while, we couldn't do it. And curbside is wonderful, and online programming is wonderful, but the discovery and the community that you find when you go to a building like this just can't be matched in other parts of our society. So next 3 years, if hopefully I'm elected, which I guess unopposed, pretty good chance.
I got my fingers crossed for you.
I'd like to see co-working spaces, places for people to get work done, study rooms. I also want young adults to feel welcomed and that this is their place, and a reason to sort of hang out and spend time there and become the patrons that hopefully we all have been the last few years as well. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Thank you both for participating.
Thanks for
So we
having us.
are winding down and we're on time. We're going to finish by 8, which is wonderful. So a couple of notes that people have asked me to share. Number one, there are 2 people on the ballot who have not been mentioned tonight. William O'Neill is running unopposed for moderator, and Walter Sandrowski is running unopposed for the Board of Public Works, so you'll see their names too. Town meeting, this year it is not on Monday, it is on Wednesday, May 3rd. So make sure you have that correct in your calendar. It's at 7 p.m. at the school auditorium where it's usually held. So this is a change from the usual Monday night, so please make sure you have it correct. With the override, it should be a crowded meeting, so plan to be there early. Doors do open at 5:30 p.m. The election is Monday, May 8th, but there are early voting hours. They are Monday, May 1st from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Tuesday, May 2nd from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Wednesday, May 3rd from noon to 3 p.m., and Thursday, May 4th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you need to apply for a ballot by mail, you need to do that by May 1st, which is 5 business days before the election. If you have any questions, contact the town clerk, Mandy Cannon, who is here in the Prescott Building, 978-365-3326, extension 1090. Polls are open Monday, May 8th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the town hall, which is that historic building on the town common where you've always voted. Also, with the Land Trust hosting this, I want to make sure everybody remembers that the town cleanup is going on. Pick up a yellow bag at the library through April 29th, then leave the bag on the side of the road to be picked up. Thank you again to everyone who participated tonight. Thank you to the Land Trust for hosting, the Town Hall staff for making sure the room was available and set up for us, and SLC TV for filming so everybody can watch this program. It was being broadcast also on Town Hall streams, so if anybody missed it and wants to see it, you should be able to see it online there. And I am Jan Gottesman, I'm editor of the item, and I want to thank you all.